Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really pulling back the curtain on a specific cyber attack technique, one that mixes, well, some old school tricks with pretty modern tech.
That's right. We're digging into a recent Sophos article. It lays out this 3 a.m. ransomware attack step by step. Really fascinating case study.
Yeah, and our mission here is to kind of dissect that. We want to unpack the social engineering, the technical moves they made, basically pull out the key details so you can quickly get what happened and maybe more importantly, why it worked.
And why it matters now, because this approach, this blending, it's something we're seeing more of. It's surprisingly effective.
It really is. Okay, so let's unpack this core tactic first.
Right. So the article flags it immediately. It's this combination punch, social engineering plus technical tools. And like we had, it's not entirely new.
We've seen bits of this before, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. Groups like Black Basta, FI, and 7, they've used similar methods. It works, so others adopt it. The article even hints that maybe a leak from Black Basta, some chat logs or something, might have helped spread this particular playbook.
Huh, that's interesting. Attackers sharing notes, even accidentally. Okay, so this specific attack in the article targeted a Sophos client. When was this?
Yeah, happened back in the first quarter of 2025, according to the report. And how they got in? Well, it wasn't some zero-day exploit.
It started with a person, right?
Exactly. Phase one was all about creating chaos, confusion. It kicked off with this intense email bombing.
Email bombing. What does that mean exactly?
It means the target employees suddenly got flooded. The report says 24 unsolicited emails hit their inbox in just 3 minutes.
24 in 3 minutes. Okay, Yeti, that's not junk mail. That's deliberate.
Yeah.
Designed to make you panic a bit, maybe? Miss something important.
Precisely. It's noise,
Yeah.
overload, makes you stressed, less likely to think clearly about what comes next. And then, right in the middle of that email storm, the phone rings.
Ah, okay, the human element comes in.
Yes, but here's the really clever or, nasty part of the social engineering. The call wasn't from some random number. They spoofed the actual IT department phone number for that company.
Wait, hang on. The caller ID showed the real internal IT number.
That's what the article says. So imagine you're getting bombarded with emails. Maybe some look like security alerts, maybe just spam, you're flustered. And then your phone shows a call from the IT help desk. You'd probably pick that up, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. That removes like 90% of the suspicion right there.
Wow. Okay, so emails create chaos. Spoof number builds trust. What was the pretext? What did they say on the call?
They told the employee they were from IT, and they detected malicious activity on the employee's computer. A complete fabrication, of course.
But perfectly timed with the email flood.
Exactly. They played on that feeling of, oh no, something's wrong, and positioned themselves as the solution. They basically turned the employee's desire to fix a problem into the key that unlocked the door. That's a crucial insight here, weaponizing that helpful instinct.
So they've got the employee believing there's a real problem and that they are IT calling to help. How did they get actual remote access then?
They guided the employee to open Microsoft Quick Assist and grant them access. Quick Assist.
Yeah.
It's built into Windows, isn't it? Legitimate support tool.
Yep. It's standard trusted. Which brings us to another key point. Attackers are using legitimate, everyday tools you already have. It's not always some exotic malware for the initial foothold. Quick Assist, TeamViewer, AnyDesk. Common tools, easily abused if you trick the user.
Okay, so they're in. On one machine, thanks to Quick Assist and some very smart, very manipulative social engineering, what's the absolute first thing they do once they have that connection?
They don't hang about. First move, download and extract a malicious archive file. And they pulled this file from a spoofed domain.
Spoofed domain again, so the download link looked kind of legit too.
Probably. Maybe look like a file sharing service or even something internal with a slight typo. The idea is just to avoid immediate red flags in logs or if someone glanced at it. Keep up that appearance of normalcy for as long as possible.
Right, makes sense. Sneaky. What was actually in this archive they downloaded?
This is where the more technical persistence and evasion tools come in. The archive contained, a VBS script.
Okay, simple script.
Yeah, probably for some setup automation, but also a QEMU emulator.
QEMU, that's for running virtual machines, right? Why use that?
Exactly. And this is pretty clever. It also had a Windows 7 disk image, preloaded with something called a QDOR backdoor.
So they're setting up a VM inside the compromised machine.
Uh-huh. The article suggests this was primarily for evasion. By running their malicious tools and routing their network traffic through this QEMU virtual machine, they could make their activity harder to spot. Standard endpoint security might be watching the host OS, but the real badness is happening inside the VM, sort of masked.
Wow, okay. Setting up a hidden little base camp inside the first machine, that gives them persistent, stealthy access. What do they actually do with this access? Where do they go next?
They started exploring classic reconnaissance phase. They used built-in Windows tools, things that defenders expect to see used legitimately. WMIC, PowerShell.
Standard admin tools, yeah.
Yeah.
But use here to map the network.
Precisely. Figure out the network structure, identify valuable systems, find administrator accounts. The article mentions they used these to really understand the environment. Then they moved to solidify access. They created a local admin account.
For RDP?
Yeah, for easier remote desktop access later. They also installed a commercial RMM tool, remote monitoring and management, specifically one called XEOX Remote.
Another legitimate tool being misused, like Quick Assist earlier.
Exactly the pattern.
Yeah.
Use trusted common software for malicious control. And then the really big step. They managed to compromise a domain administrator account.
Ah, and that's basically the keys to the kingdom, right? Full network access.
Pretty much. Once you have domain admin, you can move almost anywhere, access almost anything.
So they went from one tricked employee to domain-wide control. What was their main objective in this specific attack? What does they actually achieve?
Well, in this case, the primary goal they accomplished was data exfiltration. They stole data, lots of it.
And they did this before trying to deploy the ransomware.
That's a key point the article makes, yes. Data theft first. They used another legitimate tool for this, GoodSync.
Good sync, like for backing up files.
Or synchronizing them, perfect for quietly copying large amounts of data off the network. And they sent it to Backblaze cloud storage.
Again, using common legitimate services, GoodSync, Backblaze, to hide the exfiltration traffic. How much data did they manage to steal?
A pretty hefty amount, 868 gigabytes.
Wow.
And here's maybe the most alarming insight from that part. This data theft happened fast. The article states it was basically wrapped up by day 3 of the attack.
Day 3. Out of how long total?
The whole incident described lasted about 9 days.
So the data was gone really early. That tells you their priority, and it tells you the window to stop that kind of theft is incredibly short.
It really is. After the data was out, that's when things shifted. The article mentions Sophos products were running on the network. What role did the defenses play at this point?
Right. This is where the defenses started kicking in actively. The article credits Sophos' XDR, that's extended detection and response tools, with containing the damage after the initial breach and data theft.
So the XDR spotted the later stage activity. What did it actually stop?
It blocked several key things the attackers tried to do next. It stopped their attempts to move laterally, spread to other machines. It blocked attempts to disable the security software itself. And crucially, it blocked the execution of the actual 3 a.m. ransomware encryptor on any other systems.
Okay, so the ransomware didn't spread widely?
Correct. According to the report, the final outcome was data theft achieved, yes. And the initial host machine, the one they got into via Quick Assist, was encrypted by the 3 a.m. ransomware.
But only that one machine.
Only that one. The defenses prevented the ransomware from encrypting the rest of the network. So damage contained, though obviously data loss is still serious.
Definitely. But preventing widespread encryption is still a significant win for the defense side, limiting the operational impact.
Absolutely. It shows that layered defenses, especially things like XDR that look at behavior, can make a huge difference even if the initial entry succeeds. Okay, let's bring this back to you. Listen, this was one specific attack, but the methods, they're out there. Why is understanding this detail so important for everyone?
Because this blend, that convincing social engineering targeting an employee combined with abusing legitimate tools, it's just so effective at getting past traditional defenses that focus only on external threats or known malware. It starts on the inside, leveraging trust. That's something you really need to factor into your own security thinking.
So based on what Sophos found, what are the key defensive steps you should be thinking about?
Well, the article lays out a few critical things. First, basics. Audit your admin accounts. Weak passwords or poor security there are prime targets. Then, technology. Use tools like XDR, not just for known threats, but to spot unusual use of legitimate tools.
Like seeing QEMU or GoodSync pop up where they shouldn't be.
Exactly. Context is key. Also, technical policies matter. Things like enforcing signed PowerShell scripts can stop some of those malicious scripts they used. And of course, use indicators of compromise the IOCs, like bad IP addresses or file hashes shared by security researchers to update your block lists.
Those all sound like important technical controls. But this whole thing started with tricking one person on the phone. What about that initial entry point?
And the article really hammers this home. The single most critical defense against that initial phase, the email bombing, the phishing call, is employee awareness,
Hmm.
training your people, making sure they recognize these tactics, know who to call for real if they get a suspicious request, even if the caller ID looks right. That human firewall is just indispensable.
It really seems like the linchpin here. Just briefly, the article also puts the 3 a.m. ransomware group itself in context, right?
Yeah, it mentions they popped up late 2023, and there are links, or at least suspicions of links, to older notorious groups like Conti and Royal Ransomware. It also fits these techniques into broader frameworks like MIDR, ATT, and CK. That's a big database of known attacker tactics. Understanding how groups operate, the common methods like this help desk impersonation, which other groups like Lunamoth also use, by the way, helps everyone build better, more realistic defenses.
So it's a recognizable pattern, even if the specific tools change slightly.
Okay.
So we trace this whole thing. The initial chaos with the emails, the clever spoofed call, getting access via a trusted tool like Quick Assist.
Then setting up shop inside with QEMU, moving carefully, using standard tools, grabbing that domain admin access.
And finally, the rapid data theft using GoodSync before the ransomware attempt was largely contained by the XDR defenses. It's quite a sequence.
It really highlights how adaptable attackers are. They'll use sophisticated tech, sure, but they're just as happy to rely on, well, tricking someone, whatever
Yeah.
works.
It really is. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. We saw here just how effective a simple phone call, a bit of manipulation, could be in bypassing layers of tech, and how fast data could be stolen once that initial access was gained. So what does this specific attack really tell us about the balance, maybe the imbalance between our technical security controls and that crucial human element? How tightly integrated do those two really need to be? Something to think about.